Hey everyone, welcome to Group Text. Today this podcast is, boldly going where it's never gone before. For the first time, I'm interviewing someone who has actually spent time in space. If you don't, of course, carry the time that I was around Gary Busey. Today with me is Kellie Gerardi, who is an astronaut, a mother, a wife, a bioastronautics researcher, and a popular science communicator who serves as the Director of Human Space Flight Operations for the International Institute of Astronautical Sciences. Kellie is also the author of Not Necessarily Rocket Science, as well as the delightful picture book series for kids entitled Luna Muna. By the way, if that wasn't enough, Kellie is walking in this year's New York Fashion Week. Kellie, I don't know how time you have time to be here, but welcome to Group Text.
I'm like, oh, that's great.
I know. It's like, you're like, wow, I'm very accomplished. When you were, let's just say 6, and someone asked you, what do you want to be when you grow up? Was your answer already astronaut?
Not necessarily. And it's so funny now because I have a 6-year-old daughter. So the question is like quite relevant. But when I was her age, I remember being stressed out by that question. What do you want to be when you grow up? Because it implied that you had to pick one thing. And even at 6, I felt like I knew I couldn't commit the entire rest of my life to one vocation, one passion. And so it was always a sort of like D, all of the above type of answer from me. And it's switched over the years. And I think it's kind of fun that that ended up being the path of my life. It's like these multitudes. And that's something I try to instill in my daughter too. I encourage her today. She wants to be a veterinarian. Other days it's going to be an astronaut. Other days it's a ballerina. It's like, great, do it all. So I would say it's like yes and. Growing up here in Jupiter, Florida, space was everywhere. But I wouldn't say that that was the only thing I saw for myself.
Which is great. And I love that you're doing that with your daughter because it is incredibly stressful. I mean, my son, even when he started college, was freaked out like, everybody knows what they want to do. And I'm like, you're not supposed to right now. So I love that message. But what is it about your job that for decades, or your field for decades, that's captivated the minds of young children everywhere?
Yeah, I mean, space, whether you're in the space industry or not, I think is just objectively exciting and inspiring and just fascinating. It's kind of like at the core of human nature is all of those existential questions. Where did we come from? Why are we here? Are we alone? Like we were sort of in this vacuum of space on this one habitable planet that we know of. It's extraordinary. And so I think that kind of view of looking at space as humanity's shared past and shared future is something that always made a really big impression on me and inspired me to want to be a part of it and want to see our footprint expanded in space and further in the solar system. And I think I feel really lucky to have been born at this particular point in time and to be alive to see what's essentially a second space age, a new space age. And I think we're on the doorstep to a new golden age of space exploration.
Yeah, just wait till you have a teenager and you're going to be like, this is the only place I can find, with no one asking me questions.
Yeah, exactly.
You had a very unconventional path, and part of it I got to highlight. You went to Barnard.
Yeah, I did.
Which is where my mother went to school. How did a girl from Jupiter, Florida end up at Barnard?
Yeah, I mean, I was always really inspired by Barnard. I loved the idea of, women's higher education. I thought it was an incredibly inspiring school. Both of my parents grew up in Brooklyn. And so New York was just a place that I felt like I wanted to experience as well as a young adult. And it's just a great program. It's just a great school. So for me, it checked all of the boxes of kind of how I envisioned a college experience for myself. And, from there, I am living in New York City. I was able to really meet quite a few people that were involved in what was the emerging commercial space industry. I graduated the same year the space shuttle program retired here in the US. And, having been an avid space fan for the earlier years of my life and growing up, on the east coast of Florida where I could see shuttle launches from my home, that felt like a devastating blow. And so I was really excited to hear about the emergence of this new industry that was combining public and private partnerships and kind of working together to bring the agility of like a Silicon Valley to the institutional know-how of government. And I was really fortunate to be able to pave a path in that ground floor and was able to take on increasingly technical roles in the industry. I had a lot of people, mentors, bosses who made big, bold bets on me. And then I worked my ass off to really make sure that those bets paid off. And then I really found my passion a few years later and my vocation in bioastronautics, which is sort of the research of how does space affect the human body? How can you work and live in space? And so I was doing a lot of human factors research in microgravity. And that over the past 10 years with my research institute, and they ended up in 2023, just a few months ago, sending me to space as a payload specialist, where I was able to finally take some of that research that we've spent years doing here on Earth and evolve it and actually do it in space in a microgravity environment. So it was really just the honor of a lifetime. And I honestly feel like I'm just getting started.
And we are going to get into all that. And obviously that being so much of an inspiration for you with your children's books. But you somewhere along the way pivoted to NYU Film School. Wasn't there like a moment when you watched Apollo 13 and said, God, fascinating. I would like to have worked on that movie and maybe I could have made it better. I mean, most science people do not end up going to NYU Film School.
Yeah, I've always been both. Again, back to the sort of like all of the above. I have always been interested in science and had an aptitude and a passion for it. I've also always been interested in science communication. So at one point I thought, wouldn't it be amazing to work for Nat Geo or Discovery? I wanted to make science documentaries that were about the subjects that captured my imagination. And I thought that would be a really good skill set to be able to combine to work in the science field as a science communicator and being able to bridge those worlds to the general public. And it's kind of fun that I've been able to do both, and later on studied bioastronautics after. And so I've always kind of molded the two. And I think it's critical in a time where scientific literacy is so low in our society. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of people that are still stuck believing that the earth is flat. I mean, that's just, it's like, I get apoplectic when I think about it. And I've taken to taking it very personally when I see those comments. But I think I've always seen the value of science needs to also be a human story. And we need science communicators to bridge the gap to help raise our collective scientific literacy.
I actually saw a post this morning that I forwarded saying, if God had made me good at math, I would have been too powerful.
Right?
That explains me. I'm always fascinated by the Explorers Club in New York. You need to explain to people what it is, because you think of it like in the 1800s and Victorian England, but you were at the Explorers Club, which is amazing. I would give my eye teeth to see it. And you had a chance meeting that very much put you on your path.
Yeah.
Explain to people how cool and what the Explorers Club is and what happened.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Explorers Club, I think that's a very apt description, and a lot of the imagery still evokes that sort of, 19th century explorer. But the Explorers Club is a century-old scientific and multidisciplinary institution, and it's committed to scientific research in all fields and scientific field expeditions. And the club's members are really notable because they've been responsible for a series of famous firsts in history, including first to step on the surface of the moon, first to the deepest point of the ocean in the Marianas Trench, first to circumnavigate the globe. For you name it, Explorers Club members have been a part of pioneering those famous firsts, as they're called. And so it's a really incredible legacy of membership, and something that I was just very excited to be around. So I was donating quite a lot of my time and working coat check at the Explorers Club for a while in college. And one of the people that I met there ended up being my first mentor in the space industry and still a dear friend. And his name is Richard Garriott de Caillot. And he, along with his wife, Leticia, were incredible mentors to me. He actually was one of the first people to fly privately to the International Space Station through an organization called Space Adventures, which he co-founded. And that blew my mind, just thinking that, you think of, the profile of someone who flies to space, you're imagining it has to be a military background or it needs to be just purely NASA government background. And then here is Richard, who, and I will share his father was Owen Garriott, who was a NASA astronaut. But Richard himself was a famous video game developer. That was his vocation and passion. And he loved space, and he found a way to be able to privately go where, civilians had not really gone before. And so that just adjusted a limiter in my imagination. And I was like, God, that's the industry that I want to be a part of, democratizing access to space, expanding Earth's economic sphere. But also, why not me? And my toxic trait at the time was like, okay, so all you have to do is become a billionaire. Like, got it. And that didn't pan out. But what it did do is introduce me to this incredible commercial industry. And through that and through my research career, I was able to, similarly have an opportunity to fly to space from a background that, we haven't seen before, but that I hope and expect we'll see a lot more of in the future.
How did you figure out, I can be a coat check girl at the Explorers Club? I mean, to me, that's fascinating, that kind of determination.
I think I've always been pretty scrappy. It's like there's one of the things that when people, especially like young people, ask for advice, it's like there's no job too small. And I think I have had this contradiction in life of being very low ego and high confidence. And I think that that's served me really well. So, at Coat Check, for example, I gave 110%. I don't say this with ego, but I think I was the best person to work Coat Check. And I mean that from the perspective of I took it so seriously. I made a mental note to remember names, faces, attire. I had a system. I was quick with it. I was responsive. I really, gave 110% to something that might otherwise be overlooked as, a non-important job. And sure enough, it made an impression on people who saw the effort. And I think kind of carrying that through my career has been a common thread. It's just like, I'm not always going to be the smartest person in any room or the strongest person, but I can be among the most hardworking. I can be among the most detail-oriented. I can control the aspects of my reputation that are within my power to control. And I aim always to control as many variables as I can. I'm not a control freak, but I'm a quality control freak.
There you go. But the ingenious move to say, if I'm going to be a Coat Check girl, let me do it somewhere that will be beneficial to me.
Yeah, and it was just inspiring. I mean, for me, the Explorers Club just represented the worlds that I wanted to be a part of. And so it was really, I felt humbled to be in the presence of great explorers and to be in the same room with them and to be holding their coats.
Okay, but to be, and I think of this from being a teen at one point in my life and being a mother who's with someone who's already gone through teens, I would think that kind of determination and creativity could have made you a nightmare in high school for your parents. Were you a good kid, or were you just like, I'll get away with whatever I want to get away with?
It's a hard question to answer. Was I a nightmare or was I an angel? Yeah, I don't know that I was entirely one or the other. I think I've always been pretty driven, pretty opinionated, pretty strong-willed. So that certainly led to typical, friction with parents. I'm also an only child. So I've been, surrounded by just, adult input my entire life. And yeah, exactly. So I think that probably contributed to some of the bullheaded tendencies that I have. But overall, I would say I was a good kid. It's like I didn't have trouble with the law or, anything major. So I think, all things considered, I think I turned out pretty good.
What did your parents do? I mean, or was this completely out of left field for them that we have this very STEM-oriented, which we didn't have the word then, daughter?
Completely out of left field. Like my, just going to college was something that was novel in my family. So my father never had the opportunity to go to college. It was like, so very much out of left field, but I will say that they were incredibly nurturing. My parents made me believe that I was capable of anything from a very young age. And so if anything, I was suffering from delusion, not imposter syndrome at a young age. I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. I could do any of this. And I think that was really helpful to build the confidence as, especially a young girl, as a teen, that, yeah, if I worked hard enough, why not me for any of these opportunities? If I worked hard enough, if I got into a good school and really applied myself and really focused, why not me? And I think that's something I'm hoping to pass along to my daughter as well.
Well, you posted something incredibly touching when you were up in space and you were waving to your daughter. How did you not, or maybe you did, keep from crying? I mean, I know as a mom, especially a mom of an only child, you live and die by their happiness.
Totally. I had intense emotional saturation in the hours, days, and weeks after my space flight. So as soon as I got back to Earth, I was in complete tears, like overcome. And in that moment, I was overcome. I loved that there was camera footage capturing, my reactions with such clarity, because I could see my breath catching in my throat. I could watch how I was overcome, and what was going through my head at the time was exactly what you're referencing. It's just this like cognitive dissonance. I'm looking at our home planet and I'm, processing what I'm seeing, feeling both a part of it and slightly outside of it, and then realizing that I'm not on the same planet as my baby. And it was just such a strange and unique and specific existential feeling. And it was overpowering. And, it still makes me emotional sometimes to think about. So I'm so grateful that I get a chance to go back and experience it again. But yeah, it was wild. And it's special. My mom was there too, with my daughter. And you just think about how much can change in a single generation. When my mom was born, human beings hadn't been to space when she was growing up. Women in the United States weren't eligible to become astronauts. One single generation later, she is watching her daughter do scientific research in space, and her granddaughter is just taking it for granted. Like, oh yeah, of course that's what moms do. So it's amazing.
I didn't know women were ineligible. Why?
Yeah. So previously in the U.S., when the space program, the astronaut program started, the main qualification was you had to be a former test pilot, and those schools were male-only institutions at the time. And so it just wasn't possible to get the experience necessary to even be considered for a candidate. So it wasn't until, the 80s before there was U.S. female representation in the astronaut corps.
God, it always takes men so much longer to figure out that we know what the fuck we're doing. It's just like, really, are you that dumb?
Right.
It's like a counterintuitive moment.
And we've come a long way.
Yes, we have. I'm assuming that a lot of this inspired you and with your daughter to do Luna Muna. And the new Luna Muna, which is Luna Muna Space Cafe. What struck me with that was the idea that you are taking something like baking, and which is a very traditional women's, girls subject, and combining it with space. What has the reaction been from other parents, especially parents of girls, where you're also a big proponent of STEM?
Yeah, absolutely. Luna Muna started as this bedtime story that I was telling my own daughter. And at the time, when I was pregnant and shortly after I had her, and I was trying to fill her nursery with all of these aspirational things, that I just wanted her to be surrounded by, like osmosis in her nursery, I had a hard time finding space and science themed children's books that were girl coded, that either centered female characters as the main character, or that were otherwise appealing to young girls. And when my daughter was a toddler, the books she was gravitating towards were Pinkalicious, Fancy Nancy. I mean, this pink, the sparkle, and I get it. And I was having a hard time finding things that fit in that Venn diagram of like, okay, but here's a subject that would be awesome, and here's what you like. And so I created Luna Muna with her sparkly space helmet to fill that gap and to show that, you know, all of these themes, space, sparkle, science, they can all go together. They're not mutually exclusive. And I wanted to meet girls where they were at and meet kids broadly where they were at. And it's very rewarding now to go into a Barnes & Noble and see Fancy Nancy, Luna Muna, and Pinkalicious kind of all together in one glittery little section of the bookstore. I love that.
Yeah, and like I said, with the cafe, it really is, to an adult, to a parent, the smart sort of intelligence of combining, like you said, sparkles and baking, and not saying, you know, baking you can be smart, which was the whole premise of Lessons in Chemistry, which was such a big hit this year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, you know, it's trying to just make the point over and over again in different forms that science is not this thing that exists abstracted from us that's, you know, reserved just for these special people. Science is all around us. It's everything we do. It's who we are. And, you know, when you think about something from a children's point of view, to me, it's like a bake sale. How fun, you know? And there are wonderful ways to be able to combine all of those themes together and make it relevant.
Okay, things that are relevant, at least to me. Fashion Week. How did this... So first of all, it's not your first Fashion Week. How did this happen? What show are you walking in? Was this like was modeling a side hustle?
I'm super honored to have the opportunity to walk in a show. So one of my close friends has a nonprofit called Rise, which works to help pass legislation for survivors' rights for sexual assault and victims of sexual assault. And one of the shows that they do in partnership with Forbes is this theme of what were you wearing? In one context, like Fashion Week, it could be very empowering, you know, sharing a designer, sharing something that makes you feel so confident that you're proud of. In another context, it can represent sort of the worst moments of your life and accusations, you know, as though you did something to warrant a crime being committed to you in the context of sexual assault. And so by combining that theme and having survivors walk alongside allies in support of survivors' rights, it's a very powerful fashion show. And then separately on the side, in addition to just wanting to support that, I have really always loved fashion. So as a fun little side project, I have created a space-themed collection of dresses. And so last year, I wore one of my dresses on the runway that I designed. I'm wearing another one this year. My daughter is also walking with me along with my mom in this year's show. And so it's a really nice 3-generation, and I'm dressing each one of them. So I'm very excited for that.
So you're a fashion girl. They give you the jumpsuit. Was your first thought like, God, I should belt this?
Yeah, right. You know, it's funny because the flight suits that we wear for training. So before I ever went to space, just during the last decade of doing research in aircraft, I fly in parabolic flight, which are when an airplane takes this roller coaster profile. Vomit comet, exactly. And the sort of, flame retardant flight suits that we wear are so often optimized for a male body. So I've never found a perfect fit that is both safe and comfortable. So I've always had to get them tailored. But yeah, the idea has crossed my mind is like, could we also do a little something? But
if you could just nip in the waist a little.
Yeah, exactly.
For the photos.
Right. And it's, it's a funny thing, but I think that is where things are headed. It's like, there's no reason why function and form and fashion can't all go hand in hand. And you see that now with some major fashion houses sort of, partnering together with various space companies to be a part of designing next generation, either spacesuits or flight suits or wearable technology. So that's definitely the direction things are headed, which I'm excited about.
Which was more daunting? Stepping on to a space flight or having to walk down a runway and not fall in front of Anna Wintour?
Yeah, gosh, honestly, the fashion show did feel more daunting the first time I did it. With space, I've prepared more than a decade. I knew exactly what to expect. I literally practiced with my eyes closed, one-handed operation, how to work my science experiment. So that part, I had muscle memory. Walking down a runway in a fashion show unlocked a type of imposter syndrome that I have never felt before. And I'm really proud of myself for doing it. It was a lot of fun and I'm excited for it. But it was definitely stressful and intimidating to be around both full-time professional models and to, try to focus just that, I learned that they call it a catwalk because a cat tends to put one foot in front of the other, and just trying to, I looked like an idiot practicing this in my house, but, luckily they played music and you just sort of like get into a rhythm of walking, like, you feel confident like a badass and the body just goes on autopilot. So I wouldn't say that I have a good walk, but I would say that I was able to do what I needed to do.
Isn't it funny what scares us?
Yeah.
Like, people are like, how can you do that? I'm like, that doesn't scare me, but this scares me.
Exactly. Yeah, totally.
Where were you when you got the call you were going up?
Oh my gosh. So here in Florida, at my home here in Jupiter, and conversations with the head of my research institute. And I just remember being in tears that day, thinking it's all coming together. And it was overwhelming. And, then also not being able to tell people yet. And I would say that I didn't sleep for the first month after that because I was so scared that the opportunity would go away. It felt so fragile and tenuous before it was publicly announced that my research institute had created this contract with Virgin Galactic to send me, that I just lived in fear that it was all going to go away or that it would pop, and just, so yeah, it didn't feel real until I was stepping onto that spacecraft. Space is hard, and there is, there's a lot of risk that's involved, not only from a safety perspective, but for the program, right? And so up until I was actually getting on that spacecraft, I was acutely aware that any number of things could go wrong to delay, postpone, or cancel my opportunity. So I'm just so grateful.
So after you go up, you come back and your daughter's at school, they always ask, like, what does your mommy do? I mean, for me, the answer Vegas comic was not a great answer. But when she says, my mommy's an astronaut, do they believe her? I mean, first of all, and I know what it's like, it is not easy growing up with a badass mom.
I imagine. I can only imagine your experience. But yeah, she walked a little taller back into kindergarten. I'll say that. She to her, it was normal. But I think what she was learning and adapting to in real time is like, oh, other people think this is cool. There's some currency here. There's some value, in this. And so we'll be out somewhere random, like a restaurant, and, someone will be taking our order, a waiter, and she'll be whispering to me, tell him you went to space. And it's just, you could just tell in those moments, she's like just trying to understand exactly how to apply this fact about our family and household. So it was really sweet. She was so excited. Her class watched my flight. And so it was just like a lovely thing. And kindergarten was such a great age, for her to be experiencing that.
Yeah, mom's a badass. Don't fuck with me. One of your goals, which again goes back towards Luna Muna and sparkly and girls and like all of it. Your goal is to have a Barbie. How can you have not been asked yet? And by the way, more importantly, what would Barbie be wearing?
Oh gosh.
Would it be like a spacesuit, a little black dress, maybe something sensible for the office? Like, what would Barbie be wearing?
Yeah, gosh, from your lips to Mattel's ears. I'm a huge fan of Barbie, have been my whole life, saved a ton of my Barbies from childhood. I was like such a collector. I don't know if this is only child syndrome again, but with certain toys, I kept them in the box. I mean, it was, versus even playing with them. So I saved everything. And I loved that I was able to sort of grow up and live out the dreams of some of these dolls that I had, from astronaut Barbie, fashion designer Barbie. It's just, she was the epitome and is the epitome of you can be everything. She is everyone and everything. So I've always loved Barbie. And yeah, if I had my own Barbie, I would imagine that it would be sort of the, like, I was going to say Bruce Wayne Batman, but maybe I'll use Hannah Montana Miley Cyrus instead, where there is the flight suit kind of default work outfit, and then there's the fun change of clothes, like, you know, bright pink space suit, but that is kind of a pantsuit.
Yeah, so Barbie has to come with 2 outfits.
Right.
So it seems like such a ridiculous question for you. What's next? It just like it's such a ridiculous question for you. Well, also on my bucket list is going to Italy. Like, what's next?
Yeah, exactly. It's a good question. So what's honestly next for me is I have another space mission that I'm preparing for in 2026. I'm leading a research team on another science mission. So we're going to be continuing a lot of the research that I started on my first space flight. So that's taking up quite a bit of my time and attention and energy. And, you know, I've also been really open online about some of my struggles with secondary infertility and trying to grow my family. So similarly, you know, I'm going to be pursuing fertility treatments. So that's what's on the immediate horizon for me and my family, is sort of expanding my family, hopefully here on Earth, and also expanding my research in space in 2026.
And a catwalk here and there.
Yeah. Just throw in a little sprinkle of space fashion.
And you're an author. Okay, now I'm just irritated. Kellie Gerardi, thank you so much for joining us, and good luck with everything.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.